All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Walk On Podcast. I am your host, John Fairbanks, and I am with a guest today named Vernon Shelton. Vernon played football with me at Florida. This is going to be the first episode of a companion episode series that we're doing here on the Walk On Podcast. Specifically, it's going with the Untold docuseries on Netflix called Swamp Kings. So the idea is we want you to have seen the Swamp Kings episodes. For every one of the companion episodes, Vernon's going to be with me here for episode 1, specifically focuses on the Gators from 2005 into kind of like the first couple of games midway through 2006. So we're going to stay right in the pocket of episode 1 of that Untold docuseries, Swamp Kings from Netflix. So go watch that, then come back here and then watch this, and we'll be diving in, listen to this. We'll be diving into the topics. If you're watching or listening on Spotify, you'll have video that goes along with this. We also have video that's on the YouTube channel for Walk On Podcast. So go ahead. There will be links in the description of the episode so you can find all those things. Otherwise, you'll be listening to us and you'll miss our lovely faces, which I know Vernon is going to be distraught about. So before we go much further, I want to make sure we give you a chance to be able to introduce yourself so we know who our cast of characters are for tonight.
So, how you guys doing? Vernon Shelton, born and raised in Gainesville, Florida. The University of Florida runs deep in our family. Dad graduated from the University of Florida, 1972, I believe. Got his bachelor's 75, I think, came back and got his master's. He's had his own construction company for, God, I don't know, 30 something years now. So, my family's deep rooted in Gainesville. So I played defensive tackle, number 61, 2005, 2006, 2007. So it's interesting that this series kind of picks up around, the time that I joined the team. As a freshman, went to college, didn't play football. I actually coached football at my high school. And so, kind of came in with Coach Myers. So, this will be a great time.
Hold on. Vernon, you didn't play football in high school?
No, I played high school.
Oh, I was saying, what the fuck did you just say out loud?
No, my first year of college, my freshman year.
Oh, got
I,
it.
I originally wasn't even going to go to Florida. Was going to college in North Carolina, and got to thinking, if the NFL probably is not where my future lies, what does the diploma on the wall say for me? And so, made the decision. Mars Hill was a great college, but man, as we know, the Gator Nation is everywhere. So, that kind of steered my decision. And so, stay home, and, walked on to the University of Florida football team my sophomore year of college. So,
being from Gainesville, how was it not just like, that's where I'm going? Or at bare minimum, like go to Santa Fe and then plan to transfer in, you know what I mean? Back when it was a JUCO, like, was it because it was in your backyard? It was kind of like, I got to get away from home.
I wanted to go. It was definitely me wanting to get away from home. So I had a scholarship to go to Mars Hill, to Central Florida. Um, to this day, I never got an acceptance nor a denial letter to UCF. But the day I decided I was going to stay home and go to Florida, I come home, I've paid my deposit, and I got a housing letter in the mail. Here's where you can stay, or something of the sort like that. But I think I just want to get away from home, and so, that was the thought process. But there were different things in plan. So here we are.
Well, that's awesome. So Vernon was the old head when I got. At least that's how we viewed him. He's very old. His body was broken. He looked broken. It was Vernon. Vernon was the D lineman. So I came in 2006 for defensive line. And
Right.
and Vern was there and essentially, took me under your wing because we needed to be scout team together. So it's kind of be like,
Right.
listen,
Right.
if we're going to ride or die, which was a lot of dying on scout team, it's like, you got to have some dudes that are going to come with you and not get you yelled at and just not get
Absolutely.
you motherfucked as bad. So that's
Absolutely.
so that is where Vernon and I kind of start to get to know each other. I get to Florida in June of 06. So I'm there for June of 06, and we kind of come into the summer program. So,
Right.
all right. So if we dive into the episode, starts off, and Tebow in the very beginning kind of says a phrase that I wrote down, which is this idea of like to give so much to something, like people just don't realize what it
Absolutely.
means. And I remember us doing stadiums. So if you don't know
Yep.
what a stadium is, we'll talk about it several times across the different episodes. But if like when we're talking about doing stadiums, I remember that being a common phrase that we were thinking all the time, because stadium is you run every single step in the 94,000 plus person stadium. You run every
Correct.
step, every section. It's horrible. There's nothing good about it the entire time that you do it. And there's about a time that you get about halfway through and you're like, dude, if we don't win the whole goddamn thing, none of this is worth it.
And
Like,
none
is
of it.
we better win.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Coach Meyer, with us, those stadiums was for every single loss that we had the previous year. That's what our stadiums were. So I remember, I think in 2004, I wasn't playing, so the team must have lost 5 games or something like that. So we had 5 different stadium events, I'll call it, because it was
Stadium
an
event.
absolute event. It was an
Oh
event.
yeah.
And it was brutal. It was brutal. Touch every single step in the stadium. To a
Yeah.
third level, it didn't matter. Touch every single one. And yeah, no fun at all.
It doesn't stay isolated to 05, 06, but I have to tell a story since we're here. I'm pretty sure Carl Johnson shit himself during one of the stadiums.
I
We're
would
running and we're on like the visitor side, and Carl's making a boo-boo like over in the corner.
listen. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. That the stadium would send you to. You had to go someplace mentally to get through it. Because after a while, I mean, let's be honest. After a while, your body's fatigued. Your body is
Oh
done,
yeah.
and there's got to be something that just says, "I just got to get to the end. If I can
And
just get to the end, it'll be okay."
and meanwhile, and I think a mental part of it is really important to say it too, because it was then you see up ahead, it isn't the fastest guys that are in the lead.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? It was always Tebow, the asshole
Yep.
that he is, just like being epically awesome at every single thing that he did, just leading the
Right.
way, leading the charge. You know what I mean? It just was like
Yeah.
such a different mental piece. Meyer early on in the episode says, this is going to be unfucking believable
Right.
as he's like getting
Right.
up, right? And it reminded me of the fact that like fuck gets transposed into all the words. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It didn't
I
matter.
remember it was all sorts of words. Like I remember one of my favorites was, I don't think it was Hevesy, but I think Adazio, he said a phrase like oh God, he said something, it was something like holy, like fucking bananas. It was like just like fuck got thrown in, and it was just so many different
Right.
just bizarre phrases that fuck got thrown into.
Absolutely.
But if you
Absolutely. It was like another adjective just to describe something else. And you didn't know what it described. It was just there. It just made the sentence or whatever that phrase was better for them
100%.
when they said it. But yes, it definitely got through with everything.
I remember I was in a hallway and I was talking to somebody and I said goddamn to something. I said it was like, how, goddamn it is. And the Hevesy goes, you watch your fucking mouth as he walks by. I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay, got it. Thanks, coach. I get that.
Right.
Well, being in
So
Gainesville, they kind of touch on it early on in the episode, this idea of like the 90s being the decade to be a Gator fan. And I totally
right.
missed that, right? So because I'm from Southern California.
Absolutely.
So being from SoCal, like it just is, Florida wasn't a
The
thing. And I
Hollywood
had to
kid.
learn. Yeah, the Hollywood kid. Exactly. And that whole me coming in of this idea of like life and death in Florida and like the football in the South, Like, what was that like for you growing up, being in Gainesville, growing up in the 90s? Like, that had to have been that had to be something.
Listen, man, I'll tell you, football in the South is king. There's not many things that rival football in the South. You know, there's football, and then there's church, and then there's good Southern food. Like
In
those are
that
like the
order.
top three things you get in the South. But besides the hurricane, like we got in the Gulf, it's coming for us. But we'll fit out. Football is king, man. And if you weren't winning at football, then you really didn't have a place at the table. And so, a kid born in 1986 in Gainesville, we're coming out of the Gailey era. Emmett Smith is on campus. He's the top dog. He leaves in '89 because Steve Spurrier is coming in, and what Steve Spurrier is coming to do does not fit what Emmett Smith does well. Emmett Smith, great back. And then so you run into this era, and you're, as a young kid, less than 10, 7. I remember I got pictures of going to pro days, or the media signing days. So you're going through, you got your poster, you're getting your poster signed, and you're seeing guys like Ike Hilliard, Riedel Anthony, and you're taking pictures with Steve Spurrier. And so, you're Eric Red. My cousin was great friends with Ed Red. So, you go to the house, to my cousin's apartment, because he's, in college at the time, and you go see Eric Red. Like, this is the Eric Red, right? Florida great. So it's, football's king, man. And you just get a chance. Football gets kind of ingrained. It's something that you want to do. You start playing at a young age, and then you're watching, that great orange and blue, and they are absolutely amazing. So for me, I don't have many memories of the 80s, right? Because I'm young. So for me,
Right.
Florida football is the 90s. And that's for a lot
Yeah.
of people right now. The greatness that is Florida football was the 90s. And you had Steve Spurrier, and it was magical. Absolutely magical. He was a magical, we always joked about a visor being tossed, and but football was amazing. Football was amazing in Gainesville, and I can't compare it to anything prior to, but I will say what it felt like as a kid in the 90s. It was awesome to turn around and experience in the 2000s, and then that should be a part of it. So, football in the 90s was king, and we tried to continue that sometime in the 2000s, which, I guess you'll find that in later episodes of the series of what happened.
Well, and the one thing that's cool, you talked about pro day, and I don't think they only showed a glimpse of it inside of in any of the episodes. Maybe like episode 4 shows a snapshot of like a pro day situation.
Right.
So that's pretty cool that you did it as a little kid, right? Stood in the
Yeah.
lines with the poster. And so what pro day was for us is that, so when I was there, we did it in the O-Dome. So
Correct.
we did it in the basketball
Correct.
stadium, and you go as a team, they put you in a jersey, and man, when you're walk on, like, you're super fucking stoked. Like, you got
You're
right,
stoked.
like you got the
Yeah.
jersey on, you're going, you get like, because the cool thing about being at Florida, and probably any large D1 school, is like they just take care of your clothes.
Absolutely.
And there
Absolutely.
was nothing more exciting to like get to your locker and you're like, oh, there's new shit in here.
There's a
I can't wait to
there's a
get it
new
open.
shirt.
There's like, I got something new that's inside. And so
Oh man, the hoodie. Oh man, the first
the
hoodie I got,
hoodies.
I may still have it. It was the blue. It was blue. Had orange Florida across the front. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Oh
man.
yeah.
Listen, it was like Christmas in July when you opened your locker and found something in it.
And the best part was when we got cold. So when
Right.
started to get colder, you started to get a lot more stuff. You get like a
Yep.
beanie and hoodies and like new. I remember
Absolutely.
I had so many like track suits. They
Yep.
gave us like so many track suits. I remember I was like sending pieces home to like
Absolutely.
old coaches and stuff, being like, here, take, because it's Vernon, I'm white. Track suits just don't have the same flair when you're
I get it.
matching. You know
I
what I
get
mean?
it.
So it was
I
like,
get
I'll just keep a
it.
piece. I'll keep the
Right.
top, and then I'll send the pants off to like somebody else, or I'll send the top, so I could just like have mix and match, and I can wear like a
Right.
shirt with it or whatever. And But I remember it was so awesome. So we end up going, right? So the pro day ends up being where you go and then they keep you with your position group
Yep.
and they set up all the tables. And I'm talking, you have what there had to have been 30, 50 Sharpies, right? That
Yep.
are on the table for you to work
Yep.
through. And then it was, I mean, how many hours? We
I think at least two, maybe
had
at
to be
least
in
2 hours.
two,
I
two,
feel like
2, 3 hours where you were sitting and they're just people standing in line, hours of line with the posters, just super excited to get them signed
they just want to get an autograph from a Florida Gator.
from a game. So you're just signing, you're just ripping through. So if you weren't good, if you weren't good at signing something, you became a pro by the end of your first, by the end of your
Absolutely.
first like the day of doing it. And
Absolutely.
it was a big deal. People were so excited about it.
They were. They were. And you know, at the time when we were doing it, Coach Meyer was the young hot coach. He's the
Yeah.
young hot coach in the Southeastern Conference, and they touched on that. Bringing that offense from Utah, and so there was an excitement and a buzz around campus that hadn't been there in a few years.
Mm,
Coach Zook was amazing as a recruiter. I mean, a lot of those guys, in that 05, 06, obviously Meyer didn't recruit a lot of those guys. Now,
right.
now
Right.
listen, that 06 class that he brought in with Tebow and Percy and Brandon like that class was absolutely amazing. Um, but it was an excitement and a buzz, man, and so pro day was amazing, and so to see the little kids, to be a little kid at one point in time, to do it, and then to be there on the other side of that table,
Yeah.
it was pretty awesome and pretty special. And like I said, but there was a buzz, and people felt differently about it. I think kind of sort of how people are starting to feel a little differently about the Gators now.
Sure.
um, I think there's still some skepticism. I think the one thing that will parallel, although it's not year two, Urban Meyer knew he had to bring in the big time recruited quarterback. He needed the
Mhm.
guy. And I think that's kind of how Gator Nation is feeling about DJ Lagway at the moment. He's the guy that you got to get in the next class or two. You miss on him, even if he comes in and he's not that great of a guy. DJ, I'll be honest with you, sucks for him. He's going to have to live up to that standard.
I
If
feel like every quarterback at this
if
point at
Napier's
Florida has had
going,
to live up to that.
absolutely, absolutely, and I think you've seen where it hasn't always happened.
Yeah.
So DJ Lagway, is kind of going to come in, similar to that Tebow, that sort of height, the guy in the 2024 class, or one of the guys in the 2024 class. So, I think there'll be a buzz around campus quite like it was when we were coming, and so you have families, kids, and people just waiting to come and get an autograph from the Florida Gators.
Meyer talks about his first time in the swamp. Now, being in Gainesville and talking about the difference, what it was. Now, being a native and being in Gainesville, maybe I won't ask you if you remember your first time in the swamp as a fan, but when you got to be like, let's say you've earned your way enough to get to be in just in a jersey. We're not even
Yeah,
saying don't even be in pads yet, but like be in a jersey on the sideline because that was a big fucking deal as a walk on just to be able to be on the sideline. Like it wasn't a given.
right, right. It was absolutely special. My dad had season tickets for a while. My mom, the church, upper room of Greater Gainesville, Church of God in Christ, near and dear to my heart, Gainesville, Florida.
Sorry, mom. I
Um,
said the F word twice or 3 times already. I'll stop now. It's a problem.
listen, I
It's
get it.
Tourette's.
But back, we work concessions. So not only am I a
Oh,
fan, we work. Oh man,
oh,
I
Vern,
think
that's
I started
awesome.
working. Yeah, we started working concessions, and I mean, I don't. The statute of limitations is probably passed, but I think I was in fifth grade. And I think you were supposed to be
Not
15 or 16 to start working. But I wasn't a small kid. Never been a small kid. So
sure.
yeah. So started fifth grade. I'm in the stadium. You're working, and so you're seeing it from up high. You're getting a chance to see, but man, to put on a jersey and run out and be on the sideline for The hometown team is amazing. It was amazingly special. My parents did they did I guess a college day at church one time.
Mm-hmm.
And this was after I played, but mom and dad are wearing the jerseys to church. So it's got the Shelton name on the back, the 61. I mean, it's our real jerseys. We got a chance to keep them.
Yeah,
So they got a chance to wear them. They still get a chance to wear them. So it was special.
that's cool.
Um, to be on that other side, man, and oh gosh, to be down on the field, to hear 90 plus thousand fans screaming on a hot, muggy Saturday in August or September, and I mean it's amazingly special. I mean, even like a spring game, getting a chance to go out and
Mm-hmm.
as a walk on, you know you're going to play in the spring game. There's no
You,
question.
you got a shot. You're gonna
You
get
got
some
a chance,
opportunity
man.
to not touch the quarterback. Yeah, you're gonna get your chance, man. To have my God, if you breathe on that quarterback during that spring game, so help you, you
Right.
will be shot on sight. There are snipers on all corners of the stadium. If you get near Tim, sweet
Yeah.
Jesus, we are gonna shoot you
Ab-
dead where you stand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But even just doing it in the spring game, man, it was special to put that up on the helmet and it was special, man. I loved it. I loved that time there.
um Talking about it being new, so Meyer's the new hot shot coming in, right? I come in 06 and it seemed to be very much just the standard that this is a psychotic place to be,
Right.
right? Of just like this is what we do, right? It just is the bar is this crazy to
Right.
ride. Like there's so many things that were just givens, not those dudes not being recruited and then being introduced to really just like this truly militaristic style
Mm-hmm.
of coaching and play. Like I'm thinking of guys like Bubba Caldwell. Like there's a number of names that just don't get talked about, right? That are
Yeah,
inside
absolutely.
of the docuseries. But it's like thinking about some of those dudes, how are they reacting when Meyer comes and kind of just says like draws the line in the sand? Obviously, they played quite a bit. Like B-side was totally all in, like
Right.
bought in hook, line, and sinker, was ready to go to war and be the general. Was it truly that? Was it truly like that easy to get
Not at
going?
all. Not at
Okay.
all. Not at all. I'll be honest with you. There is a large group of players. Well, I don't want to say large, but there are a group of players. Um, well, let me say this. When Meyer got there, when I got there, see, Meyer had already gotten there, I guess, in December, January. I walk on the team, it's March. So they've already gone through that initial round of mat drills, which was an
February.
absolute culture shock to life of anybody.
Sure.
Um,
Yep.
my gosh, man, that it was an absolute culture shock. So they've already gone through mat drills, which I know we will definitely get into later. Um, they've already, so they're kind of starting up for spring season. So when I get there, it's still this change. This is the first spring, so I get there for spring practice, and
Well,
people still don't know what to do.
Vern, we won't get to match drills because we'll be done with the season. We don't even get through all of like by the time we get to 2006, we won't get to that off season. So let's
Well,
talk.
there's a slight off season between '05 and '06 that I was a
Oh,
part
and that
of.
would have been your first experience.
That
Okay,
would have been
that's
my
fine.
first experience of mat drills. Correct. That
Well,
was
then
that.
shit. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk about Mount Jerusalem now because you've already teased it out, and I
Oh
can
God,
and I can participate. I can talk about it, and we will probably other guys that I have on that came on after. I'm sure that they'll want to like reminisce just a little bit about it as well.
man,
But
mat
so
drills was like that initial indoctrination of like, here it is, you're in these four walls, we have locked you in a box,
mm-hmm. And it
and
was
you got
box.
these stations,
Mm-hmm.
and who really, the stations didn't matter. It really didn't matter what the stations were going to be. You were going to be there for roughly an hour. You could make it longer if you chose not to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
um, but it really didn't matter. Whatever they wanted to get done in that hour, they were going to get done. Um, so you had your quarter eagle station, but the one that was the worst. which is the one that they talked about, and teased in the I think in the preview
Yeah.
as it was coming in was, there's two guys. One
Combat
guy gets
station.
down, the other guy gets on top. It's the combat station.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when you really, really, really kind of started to see the separation of guys.
Sure.
Who were going to be the guys that it didn't matter what got done to me, I was going to make it to the line.
Mm-hmm.
Or it doesn't matter what this guy's going to do, I will never let him make it to that line. And that, oh man, I have seen guys get choked out.
Oh yeah.
I have seen guys get put to sleep. I have, one of the things you learn early, keep your head down and keep your chin tucked. That way you have to make sure nobody can get their arm underneath. But man, I mean, because that was the first thing we did.
Well, I think it was fair too, because the combat drill was at the end.
Correct.
Right. So all of this stuff was mental toughness stuff. So when we talk about mat drills and they show some of those clips, that's not what it was. That was a 9-minute station at the end that then really turned it up. Like it was already an individual station that you would do with your own individual like position group. So you and I are both defensive linemen. We'll be in the back of the line. So you and I are probably going to go against each other while we're doing that. And then eventually you go, and then you're going to go offense versus defense.
Offensive line versus
defense line versus D line. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But that was at the end, and the rest, as you worked for so long. And if you lost, then you got punished more.
Absolutely.
Then there was a motherfucker of a thing. Sorry, Mom, was the thing at the end, right? Where it was like, then they really were gonna put the screws to you. But
absolutely,
the combat drill was high anxiety inducing, right? Because like I'm literally gonna have to fight someone in a minute.
Combat. It's combat.
It was. But the really hard part was truly like going from those stations to station and just not fucking it up and having the guys that were in front of you get mad, because I think that this was the genius, like the evil genius of those stations, where the first guys were seniors.
Right.
And then
they were the older guys, your leaders.
Right. So your oldest guys or your leaders went first, and then it just went younger, and then kickers, right? Like whoever was like left over, right?
Right.
And it was usually was pretty quick. So if we're in the quarter eagle station, you have to respond to where the coaches are telling left, right, up, down, forward, all the things. And then they got to get out. And then, but if the guys, and most important was if you were second or third in line, you had to be like locked in. Because as soon as those front guys got called out, you had to be able to come in, snap down, and be ready. And if you weren't, then the guys in front of you had to go again.
Yeah.
And I remember having significant anxiety about this, of just being like, I can't fuck it up.
Don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. I don't want Joe Cohen mad at me. I don't want Ray and Joe and Jarvis. I don't want any of these guys mad at me.
Because I watched them get mad.
Because I watched them
get mad at other guys. And I saw what happened. It won't make it in the documentary, but I saw what happened when they got mad at the other guys. It was
whatever. It can be in the documentary. Absolutely. I watched Clint McMillan break Trent Papello's face.
Absolutely.
Because Trent screwed up like 3, 4, 5 times in a row. And so I didn't know that this was the culture yet, right? Like, if I don't know that you're just going to get knocked out. Like, I remember hearing once that like Wilbur got knocked out, or vice versa, like in the weight room when Siler was talking about like, don't if he put his feet down one more time, knock him out. I'm gonna punch him in the face. And so that was the standard. So we're just like, oh, Pamela keeps screwing up. It's like, all you're thinking is like, I am so glad that I am not him. And then just out of nowhere, he gets punched so hard in the face that it breaks his shit. He's done for the season.
Yes.
Like he doesn't play that season.
Right.
And I remember just being like, sweet Jesus. Like this is so, it was so, I never was going to screw up. Like it just wasn't like, I was going to get my name called and I was going to be perfect. My feet were going to be behind the line. and I was going to
Yep,
be in position,
absolutely.
and I was
I
going to
was
do
gonna
it.
touch
So
the line. I was gonna get to the. I was yeah, yeah, absolutely. But the true genius of it was that Herb was teaching us a way to be together. And when it all boiled down and when it all got rough and it was hitting the fan, are you going to do what you have to do? And you'll see it in the locker rooms, even in the documentary. You'll see it in the locker rooms above the doors. It's do your job. He
yeah,
didn't care about anything else. Do your job. And if you're not going to do your job for yourself, do your job for the guy next to you who's doing everything that he can to make sure that we can win, that we're in a position for the ball to bounce the right way. And it was truly just, listen, if you're not going to do it for that guy knows that he can't take you to battle. And these are the times now,
mhm.
it doesn't matter what happens on the football field. These are the times now when you get tired and you can't think, are you going to figure out a way to get it done for those other guys or not? And those guys knew who they wanted to take the battle with them and who they didn't. Who did they trust, who they didn't. And it came from mat drills and stuff like that.
I would 100% believe that. Do you know what is the origin story of War Daddy? The phrase War Daddy got thrown around a lot. This dude's a War
Say it
Daddy.
again.
So War Daddy, like if somebody was a War Daddy, got thrown around a lot on like the special team
Oh,
side. Um, do you know what that origin
I
is?
yeah, I don't know where that came from. No,
Okay.
I don't know if that was something that Herb got from his military background, or just something he came up. I have no idea. That might have just been I would honestly believe it's probably something from a military background.
Oh, for sure. I
From
would
from a
imagine.
guy that performed well in war, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I can't remember where it came, but those were moments where so a War Daddy got used a lot on the special team side of the ball, and was is a phrase that
Right.
got used for typically like you'd have walk-ons would get a some walk-ons that would like were willing to essentially like Sorrentino was a War Daddy. Right. It was just a dude that was
Right.
willing to jump over
Right.
the wedge on punt team, just go through the meat grinder, be willing to just be an absolute psychopath, no fear of repercussion, like that style of
Yeah.
play that was War Daddy play.
Yep.
And that is what
Yeah.
the mat drills brought about. And then they show clips of, let's just jump right into it because it was a very, very similar style. They show the midnight lift, right? They show the midnight
Oh.
lift where everybody gets dressed up, right? But I'm telling you right now, the
Yep.
midnight lift was one thing, but the St. Valentine's Day massacre lift
The massacre was
that
something
does,
else.
you know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't make it. But if we're talking about things that like are going to try you and like try you mentally, it's like Omer, like he had to be rushed to the hospital because
I think I do remember. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
the muscles in his legs would not stop swelling, that they had to like surgically make incisions across his quads
Yeah.
because he was getting rhabdo in real time, like right there in the, like it was you were going to be dragged out.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
the
Right.
idea of like the weight room being used as a means of putting you into a corner and seeing what
Right.
you'll do. Like
Right.
mat drills was that thing in February, and it's why all of us hate the month of February. We
Absolutely.
like it just is nothing good happens that month, and it's
Not at all.
because of that. But those lifts, I mean, and
Yeah.
that was what made it worse. Honestly, was the same Valentine's Day massacre happens in February while you're doing mat drills.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll be and man, listen. So talking about the weight room. When I first walked on, we didn't work out in the. I'm sorry, we didn't touch weights in the weight room. I don't know if that
What?
was your experience or not.
No.
When I walked on in March, let's see, spring practice would have been April. We did not touch a weight in the weight room until July, maybe August. Everything was body weight. Everything was um, sandbags. It was partner lifts. Everything was nothing but, you guys are the walk on crew. You guys are over in the corner. You got no weights. You got to earn the right to be here just like everybody else.
I think so. Now that you say that, and I don't know if it's memory of seeing other guys or if it was me for a period of time, but like there was like a hallway crew
Correct.
of like the
Correct. It was
dude
the
where
hallway
you
crew.
trained in the hallway
Yep, with each
and
other. You be
mhm.
doing pull-ups. So you grab one guy's hand, you grab the other guy's hand, and
Oh
you're
yeah.
laying on your back and you're doing pull-ups, and they're trying to hold you up, and then you just kind of rotate it through the three of you. And it was like those were your pull-ups. That's how you did your chest exercise for the day. You don't get to use the bench here yet. We'll
Did you
we'll
know
wait
that
and see if you guys are still around.
Coach Mark made me vomit from doing manual neck one time?
I can believe it.
Like he was my partner for neck exercises and it was so hard and I pushed so hard that as soon as I got done, I had to go puke. He's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I just had to throw up. I'll be fine."
That's
Like
it.
it just was like but it was yeah, like those manual exercises. I use that shit to this day where
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll put athletes through it because it's like the manual shoulders and manual neck. Like
Absolutely.
those were two that were just good. It didn't matter who you were.
No, not at
It
all. Not at all.
you were toast when you did that.
Not
So
a, yeah,
I did not
absolutely.
remember that until right now. The idea of having to earn your way with it,
And one
and
of
that,
the it was
go
it
ahead.
was terrible. And one of the worst was they
It
came
was
up with like a 2x4 or 2x4 that they wrapped in artificial grass and they put wheels on the outside. And so we would go in the ramps of the stadium,
oh
out in the,
no.
and we would lay down and put them on our thighs. And so we lay our thighs down on the wood, and we had to army crawl up the ramps. And then at the end, we'd come back, we'd go up and down, go up and down. And then at one point in time, we all lay down and we'd all have to do push-ups. So if you were at the end, you did one, the person next to him did two, the person next to him did three, you got all the way down. If
Mhm.
it was 15 of us, the last one did 15, pause for a second, and then he was back down in the one because it was coming back down. And I remember, and I cannot remember who it was at the moment, but I remember somebody quitting that day because it was one. I still,
That's awesome.
and it could have been Coach Mark. Listen, if you're not gonna do it, and again, it was this whole thing of if one guy keeps messing up, the entire group's
Yeah.
got to keep going back and forth again. And
Mhm.
that was listen, you guys are a unit, you guys are a team. If one person messes up, it messes up everybody. I still can't remember who it was trying to walk on, and I think they quit that day or got kicked off. But I just remember it was like that kind of stuff. Like, Coach, why am I out here doing army crawls on a 2x4 with wheels in on these ramps? Like, what's the purpose? But it was, are you gonna do what it takes to be here?
Yeah.
Even if you're a walk on, as a walk on, we're not paying you anything. We're not paying for anything. You're actually paying to be here,
Mhm.
but you got to earn the right to be here. You got to
Oh,
show
for
that you're
sure.
willing to do everything else that everybody else is going to do. They didn't take it easy on us at all,
And
at all.
I was talking to somebody earlier today where it was like that's where when we got the rings, when we win, right, in 2006 and we win the national championship, because you and I won't get to talk about that, that it's we win, it's that's where even as a walk-on, there was like no shame in wearing that
Absolutely
ring
not.
because it was
Absolutely not.
so much work. So much
Absolutely
work
not.
went in to doing what was necessary to help that team get there that it just was like it was didn't even cross my mind of like, I don't
Right.
know, like I wasn't on the field
Listen, man,
second.
people undervalue the importance of a scout team. If you don't give them, if you don't get a good look, then you really, once you get to a game on Saturdays, like it's tough. It's tough,
Yeah.
right? Because what I saw Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday looks nothing like what I'm seeing right now. So,
Right.
I think we could tell the games and the weeks that we prepared them well, and you, I mean, everybody has a role, everybody does a job. So when you get to the end, the goal, and man, that confetti rains down, because yes, you're right, we won't talk about it much, but when that confetti rains down and you're standing and just kind of looking, there is a video somewhere. I think it was on the Sports Illustrated video that came out. Me and Cam Brewer, which is a former
Okay.
Gainesville kid, going to
Yeah.
PK, a little older than I was, but it gone to the military and come back to college. Like we're
This
doing like
this
snow
was the
angels.
Marine, right? He was the
This was the
Marine that had the
Marine.
yeah.
Yeah, we're doing snow angels in the confetti, and it's just, I might not have played a down in the national championship game, but I've been here. I have bled. I have sweat. I have cried. I have, uh, you know, felt like I was passing out. I've gotten a concussion because somebody hit me in the head. I don't know who from where. It's just, and it's just, man, to be on that mountaintop and to get that ring is like, you know, there's no shame in this at all,
Yeah.
man, at all.
Well, we'll rewind back. So we go back into the episode and we talk about they play Tennessee right in game 3.
Right,
And they talk about the first time where it was like, I think maybe it was Tate Casey was talking about like you is like Meyer's desire to win and
right.
like that fire in his eyes to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in like team meetings
Yep.
and like seeing him get super intense about whatever the topic was, about
It
whatever
didn't
we were
matter what
talking
it
about.
was.
And I remember that had to have been, I don't know what Zook was like. Like, I have no idea what the demeanor was like, but just assuming that I've never met anyone ever in my whole life that has had
Right.
that type of fire that Meyer has, it had to have been shocking. It had to have been shocking for a lot of the
Listen,
dudes that were there.
it was. It was. And I think if you caught, so I was never with Zook, but I just remember the guys always saying Zook was like that player's coach, real cool. Was really, kind of player led, stuff like that. And then here it is, you come with this dictator. Um, and
Meyer was
and
not a player's coach.
he was
Meyer
not
was
a
not a
player's
coach.
coach.
No.
Siler says it at one point in time. If you're a superstar, I treat you like a superstar. And if you're not, I won't. And if you want me to treat you like a superstar, figure it out. And that was
And
him. And it was a dictatorship. Listen, I don't care what anybody says. The assistant coaches, the weight coaches, it was a dictatorship. If Myers wanted it to happen, it better happen. And it better happen now. And if it does not, bye bye, I'll find somebody, I'll replace you, and I'll get somebody that's going to get in here and get it done as well. Um,
a coach that they don't talk about, but definitely was coach's right hand man. No, it's not John Clark.
Listen, John Clark's my guy. So.
Yeah, it's all right. Um, John Clark was an assistant. So that's very inside. So John Clark was an assistant to Meyer, and he was the gopher. He
Yeah.
was did all the things, and I would not have wanted John Clark's
No,
job in any, like, there would be no amount of money in the universe, in the
not at
world,
all.
that
Not at
would
all.
I would take that gig. No, it was Mickey Marotti.
Absolutely.
So Coach
Listen,
Mick
that.
doesn't, they don't get talked about, right? None of the strength staff gets talked about in the program, but it's all of our offseason. Like, we were with Meyer and with our position
Mm-hmm.
coaches from what, like a short, maybe spring ball, right? Like, we would be with him in
You get
spring
him in
ball for a
spring.
couple of months,
Yep.
and then we would be with them in
And then
whatever,
you had once fall
July-ish,
camp came around.
right? So
Yeah.
July-ish to December. You know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
But then we were with Coach Mick and all of his staff for the rest of the time, easily the
Yeah.
majority of the year.
Absolutely.
And so all of the mental toughness, the weight room stuff that we did, mat drills was, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yep.
those things. Yeah, you'd have some position coaches that would come in, Charlie Strong, a couple of the guys would run some stations and stuff.
Yep.
But Mick was the one that set, you know what I mean? He set that tone
He
with
did.
Mark and
He
all those
did.
dudes.
I will tell people to this day, the strength and conditioning coach is probably your most important hire as a college coach, because that strength and conditioning program, that strength and conditioning coach, and that that team with them, they're going to spend more time with your players than you do as position coaches. They're with us from the moment the season is over. We're with those guys until spring ball hits. Spring ball is 1 month, if that, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. And then you're right back with the strength staff. And then you're with the strength staff until fall camp. And when I say fall camp, I mean our tour days right before the season starts.
Right.
We're with them. But I mean, yeah, man, that Mickey Marotti, Matt Bayless,
Bayless.
Coach
Holsopple,
Mark.
right? Coach
Yep.
Sop comes in
Coach
after
Sop ended up coming
Bayless
around.
goes.
Coach Sop came in after Bayless left, and I can't remember where
Right.
Bayless went. But yeah, that crew, man, like that wait staff was everything. Coach, I can always hear Coach Bayless now. Come on, get going. There was like he was hoarse all the time, but there was
all the time. And we used to joke around. So Guilford, right? Sunshine and I would talk about it all the time. We'd make jokes.
Yep.
We'd be back at the house and just be like, he would talk like this all the time. And he was like, he's about to vomit. He was about to vomit. Like, he was just getting so upset about whatever was coming out and he was going to vomit. But he was such a solid dude. Like,
yeah.
I remember he got hurt. Oh, we're never going to talk about this. The pit. Did you ever have to go to the pit? Did you ever get hurt and get sent to the pit?
Oh, the pit in practice. So for the guys, so Herb's thing was, I don't care if you're hurt. Well, no, there's a difference between hurt and injured.
Correct.
But let me be honest with you. I don't really care, right? If you can figure out and play, then figure out and play. But like, listen, don't come to me telling me you're not feeling good and you can't practice today. Okay, if you're not going to go practice, go to the pit with Coach Bayless. Right. And it was some of everything. I remember the pit in 2-a-day in fall camp. I remember at one point in time, my good buddy of mine, Terrence Sanders, number 92, ended up starting on that national championship team in 08. He something's going on with him. I see him and Coach Bayless. They got it's those two and then two other guys. They're carrying a picnic table from one end of the field to the opposite end of the field. They sit the table down. Coach Bayless sits down on the table for a second. He gets back up, and then they pick it up and they carry it back down to the other end of the field. And then you come back and you see now Sanders isn't a small guy, right? Sanders is probably 280, 290 at the time.
No. T had to have been heavier than that.
Okay, he could have been heavier than that.
T was big. T was a big guy. He was yeah, because I was, I was at the time I was 280. You know what I mean? Like, and T was bigger than I was.
Sanders could have been 315 at the time or so. But listen, the man's doing like Spider-Man crawls on the fence, like from one end of the field to the other, and you're like,
oh my God, yes, he's up on the fence
in shoulder pads, in a helmet, in cleats. He's scaling the fence, but Meyer didn't care. Like, listen, you're not going to be unable to practice with us, and we're out here grinding, going through this, and then you guys are just sitting over there taking a day off. It's not going to happen. And I think he also did it to figure out, hey, listen, is that something that you can figure out how to push through and play through? And if you can,
correct,
let's go play. Because I guarantee you'd rather practice than go be over in the pit.
Now, Vern, I don't remember seeing Percy in the pit. I'm just saying.
Well,
I'm just saying. I don't remember seeing.
Percy was also the best player to ever step on a football field, in a lot of people's opinion.
I don't remember seeing him there. I'm just saying. I remember him being in the air conditioning, riding a bike. That's what I remember.
Well, Percy Hart, but he was having migraines, so we had to keep him out of the sun.
Noted. No, it was terrible. If you were hurt or injured or you weren't feeling it when it was 2-a-days. That was when that field had like a sandbox because of like the sand volleyball courts or whatever that we were at. Holy shit. Like, it was very quickly where you spent one day in the pit and you're like, I will just play until my arm falls off. I don't care. I don't care how broken this feels or not working I will do this.
Absolutely. Rather practice.
Yeah, I got stuck in the pit a couple times because either of a groin issue or like I had like messed with my big toe or something stupid, right? I remember
Right.
Coop had terrible issues with his toes and used to have to get like
Yep.
crazy taping done with his toes. So I remember I had something like that where I pulled something and man, I was in there with Bailey. And so as a walk on, like you're going to work. Like for me, my attitude just always was, it wasn't like I could never imagine. Like I literally couldn't fathom the question to a coach, why are we doing this?
Right.
Like I couldn't, there's no way. There's no, like, there's the thought never would have entered my mind. It just was, you need to go do this. Okay. Like it
Now,
just was like, cause for me, it's just, I wanted to earn my, like, I just wanted to earn my spot.
right.
So it
Absolutely.
didn't matter what,
Absolutely.
it didn't matter what we were being told to do. But man, I remember being in the pit and just being like, I literally am hurt. Like I cannot play and just hanging with Bayless and just being like whatever he could come up with of doing whatever. And it was
Yeah.
so funny whenever scholarship guys would be over there because they would be,
Absolutely.
man, they'd be so salty. They would be so pissed that they're over there. And just, I think it brought Stop and Bayless and Coach Frank. I think it brought them
Yep.
so much joy to just
Absolutely.
torture these like overly privileged, like you know what I mean, like these scholarship guys that would come in just being like, this is not fair. It's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Absolutely.
let me show you what fair is. I'll get going with fair is. And oh
Absolutely.
man. um
Oh.
and it was real too, because it was the idea of, so they ultimately we get out of the SEC race as we go with the episode. And that was a
Back
big
in
deal.
'05.
Yeah, we're talking about
Yep.
05, right? So
Yep.
we're in
Yep. Yep. Yep.
05. We're out of the SEC race after the Tennessee game.
Right.
And as we come up on that loss to South Carolina.
Correct.
And that phrase out of the SEC, I think it's important because I don't think it was portrayed well enough during the series of like what it meant to win the SEC or be competitive for the SEC championship. Certainly by the time I'm there in 06, it's like our job is to get to the SEC, like get to Atlanta. Like
Yeah.
that was all it was do your job and we're getting to Atlanta. Like
That's it.
nothing else. You know what I mean? And what's interesting is nowadays, I think it could be taken for granted, the idea that it's, well, of course, you get to Atlanta, you're going to go to a national championship. That's not what
Right.
it was back then. That, like, it wasn't
No.
05, even in 06, that wasn't a guarantee. Like
No.
just
Not
because
at
you go
all.
to the SEC championship game, this is the time period where other schools, other conferences were still winning the national championship. It was USC was in the year before, right? With
Right.
Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. Like it was like these dudes were, the SEC was not the dominant conference
Not
at
yet. They
this
were starting to
point.
be, but they weren't right there yet.
And
Yeah.
what is Trumbaugh, whatever the hell his name is, the one bald dude that's the talking head that
Yep.
was talking the whole time, right? He's
Yep.
like, he goes, Tebow getting to Florida changes the history of college football. And I think is that then all the recruits do come. Now everybody is coming into the South. Everyone's coming to the SEC and changes it. But I think it's
Absolutely.
important to note that idea of like, to be out of the SEC race is truly devastating because that was the only goal that we ever had, was just get to Atlanta. Everything else works its way out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you got to win the conference first. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to get to Atlanta if you want to get to if you want to win the SEC, and then you got to win the SEC if you want to play for national championship. So,
Yeah.
listen, get to the SEC championship game. Be the dominant team in the Southeastern Conference, and everything else more than likely will take care of itself.
The hype, you touched on it a little bit ago, where it was at this point in the episode, we really start talking about the hype for Tebow.
Right.
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 And you likened it to a little bit of the hype that's kind of right now happening with the 2024 class. Kind of, there's some similarities.
Correct.
What was the hype like on campus with the Tebow conversation happening, or certainly the hype in the team?
I think the documentary so far is interesting, and I'll say it in that regard because um,
You're allowed to
I
be
remember.
honest. No
I
one's
remember.
gonna. No one will listen to this, Vern. It's just you and me.
No, but I'm
Say
giving to you
exactly what you mean. Tell us exactly what you mean.
that defense. In that '06 team could
Mm-hmm.
care less about Tebow. And and could care, and I don't want to say could care less about Tebow because they understood what the kid could be and what potentially he was going to be. Um,
He's just
but at
another
the end of the
freshman.
day, yeah, but at the end of the day, like we don't care nothing about what what horse you rode in on.
Yeah.
We don't care anything about it. Now, did Tebow go to work and did he grind and prove himself? Absolutely. But it was still a process for Tebow. You know,
Yeah.
Tebow still had to prove to those older guys that he was worth it, that he was willing, that he was capable, that he was going to do everything that he could to, fall in line with what had become or what was being built. um, I think I remember one, in practice, Tebow would always run and red jerseys, don't touch Tebow, don't touch Tebow. With Tebow, liked to run up and hit the linebackers.
He sure did.
And I remember, okay, Silas said, keep playing. And I remember one day, and I think he went to pull up slightly on Silas, and Silas popped him. And it was like the message of Tebow, we don't care nothing about that red jersey. And we don't care nothing about the aura and the hype and all that kind of stuff. Listen, when you on this field with us, you on this field with us.
That.
And I think it was that mutual respect, though.
So you and I, we're getting in '06 now, right? So
Yeah.
we're in '06. I wanted to see if you had an opinion about the idea of everybody was getting kicked off, like South Carolina, they lose, and then a couple of dudes get thrown off the plane because they're
Uh,
laughing. But you and
Myers
I,
said, what Myers said, and again, it goes back to that kind of sort of that dictatorship. But you're not gonna cost me my job. That's not gonna happen. And there was another thing that I know I heard Myers say multiple times. This university is paying you almost $40,000 a year to be here. I'm not gonna waste these people money. I'm
yeah,
not gonna waste these people money on you for $40,000 a year. They're paying you the meals, room, board, books, you know, all of it. They are taking care of this. We are not gonna waste this money. So if you either gonna be bought in and be all in or bye-bye. And there was a mass exodus in that '05 year, right as he got there, but for sure once that '05 season was over, there was an absolute mass exodus. '05, which the series doesn't touch on, we played the bowl game down in Tampa.
you guys play Iowa, right?
We play Iowa in the Outback
Outback
Bowl.
Bowl. Yeah, that
Yep,
was my
in the
last bowl
Outback
too.
Bowl. Correct.
Yeah, I played Penn
Um,
State in 2010.
Oh, so yeah. So my last one was, I don't want to talk about it. Michigan.
Oh shit! Was
Michigan,
yours was
Orlando.
'07?
Yeah, '07,
Oh,
Michigan.
poor
Tebow
Vern.
wins the Heisman. We lose to a Michigan team that lost to Appalachian State early in the year.
Uh-huh.
But Lloyd Carr's retiring, so like Michigan's on this high horse. Michigan had an amazing team that year, though.
They should give us that win because Paterno was still coaching, and there was all that
Yeah,
child fondling
yeah,
going on. I'm just saying,
yeah. I
we'll take
know.
the win. We'll take it back. Take it forfeit. That
Absolutely.
was a brutal game. Anyway,
Absolutely. But there was
somebody-
there was a mass exodus in '05, man. Like,
yeah,
Herb said listen, I need my guys. And if you guys aren't going to be
yeah.
bought in, you guys got to go. And so, he shipped off a bunch of guys. Not he wasn't going to renew their scholarships. And people can say what they want to say, but I mean, people don't get renewed at jobs every day. Um, and so it happens. And Herb kicked a bunch of guys off, wasn't gonna renew scholarships. You guys got to find other places to go and play. And that was it. Guys weren't happy about it, but I mean, hey, Herb said you weren't gonna cost him his job.
What was the school that was north of us? They used to say like, "Oh, we'll transfer you to Valdosta.
Yeah.
If you need to go to Valdosta, we'll send you." Why Valdosta? I mean, that was the school he always talked about. Like, you need to go to Valdosta? Like, we'll send you to Valdosta. Valdosta
It
will
was the
take you.
closest one.
We'll send you to Valdosta State to go play. But no, that was real,
Absolutely.
man. Like, I remember being in some punt team meetings. Good Lord, because Meyer was the special teams coach.
Yep.
And man,
And
he
that
would
he did
call,
not play about.
oh my God, he would call dudes out and just be like, it's, I'm not going to have to explain to this coach's family why they're going to have to move. Why dad had to get fired. It's just like, because you can't hold a 2-second block.
That's
You
it.
can't hold a 2-second block. And I'm not going to explain to this man's family that he's going to lose his job because you can't hold the 2 second. I'm just like, my God, J-Dub is going to go hang himself later. He is
Absolutely.
going to kill himself. Remove J-Dub's no shoelaces. J-Dub is on suicide watch this week. Yeah, it was for sure. It was so
Yeah.
personal. It
Yeah.
was
Absolutely.
so personal.
Absolutely.
I like that about the Tebow hype. Now as we're getting into 06, right? So I'm now here.
Yeah.
And I think it really is important to talk about that defense for a minute.
Oh my gosh.
Because you and I think at this point in 06, we weren't scout defensive linemen. I felt like we scout offensive linemen.
We were scout offensive linemen. Yeah.
And my God,
Yeah.
going against those dudes, I mean, it was Trap,
Yeah.
Joe, Ray, Jarvis. You got Earl at back, Crumb, Tyler. We don't even, in the clips for the 06 Tennessee game, we don't even talk about like Reggie Nelson.
Oh, listen.
Like, I think he put a kid in the hospital.
Yeah.
In that Tennessee game. He hits him so hard that it is just like, I think he got carted off and like spent the night in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, we talk about Major's hit, you know what I mean? Major's hit. And
Major's hit. Yep.
But it was, I mean, Reggie was a missile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
it just, I remember, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I heard Reggie would say that he had the best job in college football. And Reggie said, I get a chance to stand back as the free safety at the University of Florida, and I get a chance to watch the best defensive 10 guys in front of me. And he had one job. It was he was the eraser. He was the erase all the mistakes that happened in front. But that defense was special, man. And that was even with a Marcus Thomas that was in and out, like Trap, like
traveling around.
He was in for a little bit, then he was out. But that defense was special. That defense was special.
Harris,
Coach Strong and Coach Madison, like that defensive staff, they were special, man. And you don't get many crews like that ever.
No, and you get spoiled because I remember watching. So as a walk-on, you get 2 tickets to every game.
Yeah.
Right. You get 2 tickets to every game. And so everybody gets tickets. Right. And so eventually, like, I become a starter and I started getting more tickets. Right.
Yep.
I end up getting, and so I got more. But I remember very early on of being like, you get 2 tickets. And oh, by the way, one of those tickets is for you. Like, it's for you if you want to go to the game.
If you're gonna be in the stands. Man,
I remember because I wanted to go. I wanted to go to the games. So I remember, man, it was brutal of being like. So I remember I was at the Tennessee game because my mom and I went to the game. So mom and I are up and Tennessee's a bunch of bitches. Those bastards give the worst tickets in the entire SEC. So in that 110,000 person stadium, they put you up in BFE, like you need binoculars to see the game. That's how high up you are. And it's just unlike any other stadium, right? Anything else, everybody puts you at like the 50-yard line or whatever it is. And Tennessee puts you just so far away. And I remember being brutal, man, where my mom's so excited. So she gets like the pin. Like, here's my pin. Like, it's got your number on it. It's got your face. Mom's wearing the pin and stuff. And then people are like, oh, does your son play? And it's like, well, yeah. And it's like, I'm like, oh God. Yep. And she's like, well, yeah, he's right here. And it's just like, oh, hi. And it's just like, ugh. And he's like, kill me. Kill me now. Can someone put a plastic bag over my face and suffocate me right now?
Right.
So I don't have to be in this moment. I remember that being rough, of like that being an element of being a walk-on, of being like, dude, I gotta get out of these stands. Gotta get out
Yeah,
of these stands.
absolutely. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this at all.
Like I'll practice, I'll get hit, I'll do the things, but man, I don't want to be standing here. I want to be standing
Yeah,
down there. Like I just want to stand
absolutely.
down there with the guys. And
Absolutely.
man, I remember being again at that Tennessee game in 06, and then we take the win, right? And it was
Yeah.
Reggie crushes that dude. He gets the interception to win the game, essentially to end the game. I think he ends
Yeah.
up getting an interception at the
Yep.
end. But we got so spoiled that year because I remember so many times where the offenses at halftime had negative total yards,
Absolutely.
like negative 10 rushing yards, like on the half.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that defense, that front seven was probably one of the best groups I've seen. Um, with Ray McDonald, Jarvis Moss, Derek, Harvey. Then you got Earl Everett, then you got Brandon Sala, you got Crum, Joe Cohen, Steve Harris. Like man,
Harris.
that Marcus Thomas, like Clint McMillan is starting to come along at this point in time because with Marcus in and out,
Yeah, that's
Clint
true.
now the next guy in that's starting to kind of rotate in and play a little bit more, man. And it's like but I give it up to a guy like a Jeremy Mincy who was there with us the year before, and
Sure.
who was a big time leader that year before. That the team still was figuring it out, but those. So this was the next crop of dudes that are coming, man. But that defense was special. And they took a lot of pride. We had our we had all of our goals. We give up no fourth quarter touchdowns. We give up no fourth quarter points. Like there was pride. We don't care if the twos, the threes, the walk-on guys are getting in, and it's Florida Atlantic. We do not give up a touchdown, in the fourth quarter at all.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do it. And so there was just a pride that those guys played with, man. And you get a guy in like a Ryan Smith in that 2006 who transferred in from, I believe,
That's
Utah.
right. I forgot. Yeah. From Utah.
Yeah, playing corner. So you got those guys, man. And listen, man, they were stacked, man. We were really, really good. And that defense it made the offense easy. For a while, man. We were good. We were really good.
So the defense, my favorite story. So I got to be early on. You're still in the film room,
Right.
so you get to be in the film room, and so you're with all those guys like
Yep.
Joe Cohen and everybody. And man, those poor freshman bastards falling asleep during film.
Sitting up front,
like just nodding off and getting in trouble of like what. Remember, it's like the door would open where Mick would come in and make everybody drink a bunch of Gatorade or whatever it was.
Yep.
It's like everybody's got a drink, and it would wake up one of the freshmen and be like, oh God. And it's just this, and Madsen was so good. Like he was so good.
Yeah, he was absolutely amazing. Shout out to Coach Madison. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh.
One of my favorite stories that I said I didn't want to corroborate. So if it's not true, you're not allowed to tell me that it's not true.
Okay.
But one of my favorite stories that I heard is about Joe Cohen. So one of my, like, if we're sharing stories about Joe, and it was that there was a party that he threw a golf cart at somebody once, where he had gotten upset or something and had, essentially not, I don't never got exaggerated, like he picked it up over his head, but there was a golf cart in which he moved physically in someone's general direction.
I won't confirm nor deny.
I can't have you. We just got to leave it at that, right? I cannot confirm nor deny because, the idea of where for me it was like, I want it to be true so badly because Joe was so goddamn strong. So it was a perfect example of just how strong man was and how easy and how nice they were to us on scout.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like just one swat of Joe's arm could have just ended the careers of all of us, all of us. And it just wasn't, because man, you'd see a couple of those when they would go like that very first, the drill where they would go like, I can't remember what we called it back then. It was like center guard, and it was
we were doing like the half line stuff
to like get us started. And man, seeing Joe hit some of those offensive linemen on like swim moves or rip moves or
Yeah.
just I'm going to smack the shit out of you and you're going to move 5 feet,
Yeah.
move. Like it just
Yeah.
was it was shocking how strong they were.
I think Jimbo Tart's shoulder's still in a sling right now because of Joe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somewhere back in Sop Choppy, Florida.
His shoulder was smacked all the way back to Sob Choppy for sure. And but it was this element of, but the one thing that was cool about those dudes is that they were nice.
They were.
You know what I mean? They were nice dudes, and there were dudes that we did play with that weren't nice.
Yeah,
They were sons of bitches. You know what I mean? They were sons of bitches. It's like, guy, you were such a prick, and you don't have to be such a prick. Like you're big, like you're big time. We got it, but like we're all kind of on the same team, kind of, right? Like my locker's just over there. You got to go around the corner. Like I was, at least I wasn't in the room. Remember the room? Remember whatever the room was? Where all the newer walk-ons had to sit in like a separate room. Like you were sewn up, like everybody just had to walk around with like the only time you saw any other players is if they accidentally turned left and they just walked dick out like out of the shower. Otherwise, you just were by yourselves.
Right. Oh man. Yeah.
And so definitely we get to B James in that Tennessee game, because this takes us ultimately to the end of episode 1 is this Tennessee game.
Correct.
And I dug how they talked about, and this was and again, I was young enough and still wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, like just trying to take care of my business and do what I did to do that. I wasn't really aware of as much of the drama that may have been there with Chris and Tim. So I'm talking about Chris Leak. But a thing I dug, because the whole documentary, of course, is just hypes up just who Tim was.
Right.
I didn't like that he was whispering the whole goddamn time. I don't know what was going on there, because that's not how he spoke. Like he didn't speak, like he was whispering, and it was just like, why is he does he have a baby asleep in the next room?
And can't disturb the wife, man. Can't disturb the wife.
What the hell? Anyway, so that was very distracting, but I digress. It was, so a thing that I liked though that they hyped on was like the idea where Tim was thrown in on whatever it was, 3rd and 1, gets the first down, gets hyped, and then immediately runs off the field. Right. And I think Dan Mullen talks about that. It's just like Tim just ran off, and then Chris just runs back on. And to me, it was like, it was an allegory, right? It was an example of just what I always viewed it as a player, as a walk-on that doesn't know shit about fuck, right, during the time. But it was, that always was how I viewed it, was just that was like Tim got used at certain times. There didn't appear to be animosity or ill will, but where you were more settled in. Do you remember what those conversations were like?
I don't want to say there was no ill will. I just think Chris was the ultimate competitor. You know, and when you're the ultimate competitor and you come out of Independence College and, you know, you've thrown for, you know, the most passing yards in high school football history and all this kind of stuff, like you're heralded as the next great, you know, arm, you know, and then here comes this freshman kid out of St. Augustine, and you know, and Chris, you know, he doesn't throw a better ball than me. You know, he hasn't been here. He hasn't, you know, done all of this kind of stuff. I think it's anytime you're the guy, I mean, you are the guy, and especially at the quarterback position. And then there's this new young hotshot kid that's coming in. And you know, you're still trying to kind of figure out your way. I mean, it's Brett Favre with Aaron Rodgers getting drafted in Green Bay. Sure. And you know, Brett Favre doesn't want to talk to Aaron Rodgers because it's not my job to teach this kid how to take my job. You know, that type thing. I never saw Chris be that kind of a guy. Yeah. You know, but you know, he was a competitor. You know, Chris wanted to win and wanted to be the guy, and so to have this guy come in and you know, be the heir apparent and, you know, be all the hype and stuff like that, I think it was a tough spot. I think you'll see it in the documentary. Like, where's Chris Leak? You know what I mean? Like, did nobody? Maybe they reached out to Chris. Maybe Chris wasn't. I don't know, but it's like,
Didn't Chris
you
get in
know,
trouble though with the law a little bit in
he
a
did.
questionable some questionable charges that would probably lead people to stay away from him a bit?
Yes. That did occur. And so maybe that's why the story is written somewhat the way it is. That it's like
For the
you know,
listeners, we're trying to be nice about it, but ultimately, I think Chris gets in trouble for what, underage girls, underage boys.
it's something that like a girl, something at a high school he was coaching at or something at the time. But I still think that it was an interesting dynamic, and I think you know anytime you're a quarterback and you're a guy and you're used to the ball being in your hands and now the ball's
Sure,
being handed to somebody else, it because it feels like there's this perceived incompetence, and maybe incompetence is the incorrect word, but there's
yeah, his
like
inability.
in essence you couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, and
You
I will
know,
tell you, being a young guy, again, not being in a lot of the meetings, but being in larger team meetings and stuff, I don't think I ever heard Chris speak.
Chris
You
was
know
a
what I
very
mean?
soft, yeah, Chris was a very soft spoken guy, but Chris talked more in '05.
Oh,
Chris was a little more
interesting.
of a vocal leader in '05. Um, I think there were some other vocal leaders in '06, so he didn't have to be as much, but there's still also this interesting dynamic of Tebow's coming in and Tebow's like, you know, do we win a national championship without having the ability to bring this other guy in and play quarterback? I don't know, right?
No, I don't think so.
But I don't know that we do. I think we needed that combination of
Right, right.
Chris's passing ability with Tim Tebow's ability to run the ball as we bring Tebow along as a passer, which he becomes a better passer, as he gets a little older.
Yeah.
So I think it was a weird dynamic, but I think I would have liked to see them talk a little bit more about Chris and what Chris meant to the team in '05 and in '06.
Certainly in '05, right? It seems
Right,
like that would be
absolutely.
robbing him of just of just shoe in notoriety. Like,
Right,
listen, he is
absolutely.
the anything. It seemed to be that what they did peg it, which was he was a square peg in a round hole. It was
Absolutely.
Myers' program was X, Chris was very much Y, and boy, we need to find an actual quarterback. Like, that was
And,
for sure the vibe.
and I think the episode did a good job of it. Meyer wanted to prove that his offense could work in the SEC.
Right.
So it doesn't matter who my quarterback is right now. I'm going to try to make this guy fit my offense as opposed to, and I think they did a better job, I guess, as we got towards the end of the season. And as we moved into '06, we know what Chris does well, and that's let this ball
Correct.
go.
Right.
We know what Tebow does well right now, and we don't have to hand this entire offense to Tebow now. We can do this dual thing and make it work and figure out because they bring different things to the table.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think they did a better job of figuring that out. And that's I think that's why we win in '06.
for sure.
Um, but yeah, I think it was just interesting dynamic. But I don't know that there was any issues between the two. I think it was just, you got two competitors, and both of
Yeah.
them want to be in the game and they want the ball, and so that's just kind of where you end up with that slight dynamic. But I think they got it. I mean, we got it figured out. We had to.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and clearly we did. Right? I mean, it was um what were as you think about to the episode 1, kind of have gone through it now chronologically, were there some pieces, were there people or moments that you feel like you just mentioned, right, Chris? For me, it was like Earl Everett, like Earl
Yeah,
Everett's tackle, his helmetless tackle in the national championship game against Ohio State
yeah.
was
But
such
but
a
the, but the
badass
episode hasn't
moment.
quite gotten to that yet.
Well,
Because the
shit,
episode
episode 2 doesn't talk about it either. Damn it to hell. You're right.
really,
But no, it doesn't. And
wow.
so so let's stick then. You're right. So let's stay till Tennessee in '06. As you think about
although
'05,
although I will say the play that gives me chills to this day, they previewed but did not finish at the end of episode 1, and it's the field goal against South Carolina.
well, Vern, you need to watch the series and then apparently listen to the companion episode for the rest of the series episodes, Vern.
Well, I'm just
I'm
saying they
they go
previewed it
into it.
as you
They
finish,
go into it.
the ball gets kicked, and I will just say that play gives me chills.
Sure.
I won't,
Yeah,
you know, yeah,
that was one of the first games that I was an SEC game that I was on the sideline for.
yeah.
So that was very, very exciting for sure. As you think then, as we stay just in those first three games in 06 and then the 05 season, moments or players that you kind of feel like, or things that just got left out, the things that weren't talked about. Was there anything that was huge that stood out to you?
I mean, you haven't really talked about the defense yet. I mean, I think you kind of alluded to that when you talked about Reggie Nelson.
Well, for
Um,
sure, right. That's why we spent some time
yeah,
talking about those dudes because it doesn't get taught. It just
it
defense
doesn't
does
get. I
not
mean,
get discussed, even with
not at
Siler
all.
being the guy. Siler is the guy in the series, but we
Right,
really just don't talk. He's a great character, and his story
right,
about his parents coming and being
right,
hammered, right? Like it's those things are awesome, right?
right.
As elements of it, but we really just don't talk about the defense. The
But
defense
we
just
don't
is.
we don't talk about the defense. We don't talk about Chris. I don't. We talk about Chris, but it's more so about um, his shortcomings.
Right.
It's not the other things that Chris brought to our team. Um, Chris was still a field general. I'm trying to think of some other things that just weren't talked about. Some other guys. Um,
If nothing's jumping immediately into your mind,
yeah,
is
no.
put that in the back of your head. But there is an element that I want to make sure we get enough of, which is just the experience of the walk on, right? And your experience of a walk on. We stay in 05 and as you coming on, truly walking onto the team, right? We talked about hallway workouts, earning your way into the weight room.
Yeah.
I want to hear your opinion and how you feel about Friday morning workouts.
Oh, man. So Friday morning workouts were for the guys who weren't going to travel with the team, who either weren't going to travel to the hotel with the team when it was an in-town game, because they, even though you were there, they still didn't bring everybody to the hotel.
Right.
Um, and then, or if the team was flying out on Friday, so you guys had to do, the team was flying out and you didn't go. And so Friday morning became one of those other mini massacre days where, um, the one thing that still haunts me in my dreams is plate push. Um,
Sure.
I got so many team issued shoes at the time that have blue marks on the toes of the shoes from the floor in the weight room from plate
Because
push. And it,
we had blue rubber floor
yeah, and so our plate push was you put a 45-pound plate on the floor,
and
and it's,
like rubber plates, right? It was rubber on rubber,
well,
or did you have metal plates at
no,
that
we
time?
would we would I think originally, and I feel like maybe we've used both, but I know we used the metal plates because
Yeah.
I just remember being able to semi grip my fingers
Yeah.
just inside the edge of the
Over
plate.
the edge. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you basically had to squat down or get down and almost in this Superman type position, and you essentially just started pushing the plate with your legs.
Mm-hmm.
And what was so terrible about, if you ever raised up too far, you were almost like pushing the plate down into the ground and it wouldn't move. So you
Yep.
had to figure out how to kind of get down it and get down behind it and push. And we do laps around the weight room. Sometimes they were small laps, sometimes they were big laps, but man, those Friday workouts were the worst.
They were terrible. They were
They were the
so bad.
worst. I think I picked a Monday, Wednesday, Friday 7:25 class in the morning.
Just so you could
Um,
avoid.
Athletic training class just so I could get out of the workouts in enough time to just go to class. My gosh, man. And yeah, those Friday workouts were the worst.
It
They
was
were the worst.
horrible.
They were like mini massacres, because then they figured, hey, we're not getting you guys ready for a game tomorrow. So what the heck? Let's blow your body out before the weekend. And then
Mm-hmm.
we'll see you back on Sunday or Monday for a lift.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I
yeah,
remember them saying very clearly, it just is like we're going to put your body through a
thi-
workout
yep.
like you
This is
played a
your
game.
game. This is
Uh-huh.
your game. Yep.
And I remember, man, there were so many good lessons that got taught though in those moments, right, of being tortured, like on a routine basis, because
Yep.
there was no getting out of it. Like, it just was like, no, this is what you want. You
Right.
want this. This is
You
what
wanted
you've
to be there.
chosen. Yeah, you chose to do this. And
Right.
I remember, so it's such a good lesson, right, that I learned early on, right in the beginning of '06. And so I was a kid that I liked to make sure that teachers knew that I knew what we needed to do.
Right.
And so the way I would do this would be I would ask a question to clarify whatever the instructions were that had been previously given, to show I've heard what you said. And just to clarify, we need to do this, and the other. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, great. Thank you. And so there was an easy way for me to get like easy brownie points, right?
Right.
And so I just learned to do that because I was a suck ass, right? Like, it just was like that was brown nose, like that was it. And so I
Right.
remember, I can't remember how many times maybe I had done it to Coach Frank,
Yep.
but I had done it clearly one too many times.
Yeah.
And so one of the times, whatever it was, and there was times where you are gassed, right? You are so tired, and you're just
Yep.
like, Frank's is like, all right, you gotta do this, that, and then he's done. And you're like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do next.
What did he
Right.
say?
So like, there's so many pieces, right? So that is still real, but there
Yeah.
was obviously was a time where where I just said, Coach Frank, what, are we doing this? And he's just like, Fairbanks, if you ask me again what I've just told you, I swear to God, like, it just was like he threatened me just right there on the spot. And I remember at that moment being like, oh, this doesn't work here. Like, this tactic doesn't work. I just need to know. Like, it just is, if he's going to tell me, I just need to know it and shut the fuck up and don't speak anymore and just do what Franks tells me to do. And I remember very clearly, though, like, it's once I made that click in my brain, like, I got, like, it was kudos.
Yep.
Like, it just was, that's where I earned for sure. I earned my spot and started to earn a reputation, was in that work with those strength coaches. Like, they never said
Absolutely.
it to me. You know what I mean? They never said it. It never was like, but it was just, that was that reputation. And thank God, man, when I moved over to special teams,
Yeah.
I got Mark.
Yeah.
So I worked exclusively with Coach Mark for then, like, just for 3 years in a row. Like, it just was,
Yeah.
he watched over, which I don't know if he you know what I mean? I don't know if he hated the fact that he was stuck with the kickers. Like, I can see that being like
Right.
such a demotion of like, I'm gonna get these dumb motherfuckers. Like, it's like, these are the guys that I have to deal with.
Right.
But man, I loved working with Coach Mark. Like,
Absolutely, man.
it was so good to have him, because he was a real dude, where I
Yeah.
always, like, I don't know how late Frank was out the night before.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, Frank just wasn't all there. Like, he was like
Right.
cage fighter kind of a guy. Like, you're just like,
Absolutely.
I don't know what's
Definitely
going
a
on.
UCF fighter.
I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on there.
He
But
definitely was in a secret fight club.
for sure. And he ran like goddamn Frankenstein when he ran.
Yep.
Like, it just was like a monster or whatever. But
Yep.
like, Mark was such a real dude that it was like, I remember later on, it was so valuable having him as that coach, just because he was able to speak so personally to those young defensive linemen.
Absolutely.
But just had so many years of, you know what I mean? Just so many years of experience.
And you know, he had his own time at Florida.
Right. Shoot, I forgot that.
So he had his own time in Florida. So he was one of the guys that you looked up to, because he'd been there. He'd done it, and he was around. So he was somebody you could go talk to and ask about stuff, man. But yeah, you know, Coach Mark was definitely valuable. Definitely valuable. I hated to see when he left and ended up at South Carolina, and I know he's been a few other places, but yeah, man. Coach Mark was amazing. That whole weight staff, man. We can't talk about them enough. They were absolutely amazing. You know, I don't know what happened or what's going on with Coach Bayless at Notre Dame and where he's going to land and where he's going to end up at, but you know, like I said, that whole crew, you know, they were amazing, man. We had great times. We had great times with them. They were tough, and they sucked. and we hated them.
Yep,
But
all of
there
those
were,
things.
I swear, man. Okay, so I'm a big guy, got to get in shape, and I swear, Coach Bayless, I was in the high needs crew.
Oh
High
no.
needs. You worked out. You had to do something additional because you got an additional need that we got to take care of. Vern, we got to get
Okay,
some weight
hold
off
on.
you.
The high need. So for the high need was just you were the fat fucks. It was just the poor guys that needed to lose, you know what I mean, like 40 to 50 plus pounds.
And it wasn't all just the big guys. There were a few of the smaller guys who just they were out of shape or something. But uh, the stairmaster.
I always thought the little guys were getting punished and the big guys needed to lose weight. That's what I always
Well,
thought it was.
it's about right, about right. And,
I remember
and
you poor bastards being on
yeah,
weight
on the
vests
stairmaster.
with stairmasters.
On the stairmaster. And Coach Bayless has somehow found a way to stand between the two of you on the stairmaster. And he
Yep.
keep going, keep your feet moving. Shelton, don't stop. Keep going. I just want to go home. I just want to like God.
and and the stairmaster is like it's like a 7, 8, 9 foot piece of equipment, right? So it's huge. And Bayless is like what?
I don't
5'2".
know, 4'11", 5'2", yeah, yeah.
Right. He was and so he's up there suspended between the two pieces of equipment. Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember coming in just
yeah.
being like, "Oh, thank God," because it was like I felt like Barry and Hobbs and a bunch of those dudes that were
Uh-huh.
like that came in that were like that offensive line group that
Yep.
came in that needed to lose weight and just
Yep.
being
Some of
like,
the defensive guys, some of
"Oh
the
my
defensive
God."
guys, Taryn.
I
Taryn
bet
would have
Taryn,
been
I
with
bet
me
T
up there
was on that group.
before. It was oh man, it was a few of us guys. We just I feel like I remember Trap being there at one point in time just because they wanted to get some weight off of him. Um, but yeah, man, that high needs crew was not fun. It was not fun.
No.
You go through the whole intense workout, and then you got
Mhm.
additional 20 minutes on the stairmaster before you can go home. Like, geez, help me out here, people.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah,
Well, Vernon, this was a lot of fun.
listen, tons of fun,
I
tons of fun.
really, I really appreciate you coming on. It was fun being able to recap. So again, everybody that's listening, this is our episode 1. This was the end of our companion episode for the Untold Swamp Kings episodes that are on Netflix. The next episode will be focusing on specifically episode 2, which dives into 2006, and then we'll do 2 more episodes. So there'll be 4 companion episodes total that are dedicated to Swamp Kings. And just like Vernon and I did, we're going to be there will be future guys that are going to be on. This is the Walk On podcast, so we'll be with other walk-ons like Vernon and myself of just sharing our perspectives, things that we saw, things that were inside the documentary, and yeah, just a very unique perspective of being a walk-on in the Swamp Kings world during that
Yeah,
time period. So
yep, absolutely, man. Listen, it's been a pleasure. Banksy, it's always good to talk to you and get on and listen, man. One of the biggest life lessons that got from football. And because for everything that you hear from Coach Meyer and the military background, and at some point in time in every person's life, more specifically every man's life, because as a football coach, you're going to leave this college or in college, and you're going to get punched in the mouth, and you're going to get backed in the corner. You're going to get punched in the mouth, and then what are you going to do? What are you going to do when life happens? Are you going to fold into a corner and cower? Or are you going to come back out and fight like a man? You're going to fight for that wife, fight for those kids, fight for your family, fight for your friends. And I will say, um, I've learned a lot through the game of football. I learned a lot at my time at Florida. But one of the things that's most special to me is to have, some great teammates and some great friends. And, Fairbanks, you are definitely one of them. We don't talk every day, but when we get together, it is absolute fun, and we reminisce, and times are great. I wouldn't want to let this moment by without just saying, to Mike Sunshine, to Sunshine, still in our hearts, man, still in our minds. We still think about you all the time, and you're definitely missed. I know he would have loved to have been on here talking about one of these episodes, and going through a companion. So I just didn't want to let this time go without at least acknowledging him. And we we've had a great time. And Fairbanks, again, man, I love you. Glad I got a chance to do this with you. And we'll sit down and do it again, maybe at the conclusion of it all.
I love everything about that. I appreciate you taking the time to say all that.
Absolutely.
It is a unique group of people and brotherhood that we all share. And I think it is stories like these that people can connect with, because
Absolutely.
I think I want to believe that it's consistent. These are connections that folks make that just, you're not going to, you wouldn't assume right at face value. The
Right.
connections that these dudes are that we all have with each other,
Absolutely.
suffered together, won together, felt significant heartbreak and loss
Yeah.
together, and then also massive wins and those
Yeah,
types of things. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes those wins were in life, sometimes those losses were in life. But
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, who would have thought that a black kid from Gainesville and a white kid from California would be good friends, right? But that's what the
bingo.
game of football does. And
That's
so,
exactly what it does.
yeah. And that's what, Coach Meyer wanted us to be able to do. And that was, grow together and be together. So here we are, shucks, what is this? I mean, we talk about 05, we talk about 06, talking about 17 years later. Here we are. Banks
Yeah,
calls me, says, Vern, I got an idea. Let's do it. And here we are. So,
love it.
definitely glad to be here, man. And like I said, as always, man, whenever you need me, I'm there.
You the man, Vern, as always. Thank you for everybody that's listening and watching. Catch us for our next episode, for the episode 2 of the Swamp Kings Companion here on the Walk On Podcast. You can follow the show on YouTube. You can follow the show on Spotify or anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. All the links are in the description below. All right, till next time.